For me, it was quite shocking how much of what I assumed to be real wasn't real. So you have to question every assumption you have, every idea of what you think is reality. Oh, these people are just spiritually dancing. They're just here to get stoned and have company. They're not seeking. That's why they're stuck. But some of the teachings I'd heard and learned from weren't covering any of that at all. So I had to leave them behind. This is a very much a factual-based process. Yeah, it's not dreaming. It's not having somebody else's words in your head and believing them. It's having maybe somebody you believe or something speaking, a speaker. You think that's interesting. That makes sense, or that might be accurate. That seems accurate. But it's not to go, yeah, that's it. I know it now. It's to find out what your direct experience is ongoing. And what you can only really trust is your absolute direct experience. Everything else is an idea until it becomes your direct experience. So it's very much a fact-based business. So then it's, okay, so maybe works really well. We'll see. But I'll do everything I can just in case it's true because it makes sense, but I'm going to try and see for myself what's going on here. And not have assumptions, have an assumption-based mind. All assumptions must be underwritten, the rug pulled on them more accurately. We return back to direct experience, and it's, for me it was quite shocking how much of what I assumed to be real wasn't real, but it was so embedded as real within my psyche that it wasn't even ever questioned. And so you have to question every assumption you have, every idea of what you think is reality. And it's unavoidable because anything left there hiding, is an opportunity for the splinter to splinter again at a later point. The ego will use whatever it can to sever that connection with self-realization. And we usually find that out the hard way. When something goes wrong. So it's best to, see that happens to people, to others, and learn from it. Do the hunting. Be the scout ahead of the tribe, watching for everything, anything moving, a broken stick, a broken branch, anything, a shadow on the horizon that shouldn't be there, a footstep, looking, watching. As if your whole existence depended on it, your whole tribe depended on it, and you're the one responsible if it goes wrong. No one else, you are responsible. They're following in your footsteps. You own it completely. That level of responsibility. I didn't see that as the tribes getting massacred because I was thinking, I was wondering about something, I was worrying about myself. I was self-obsessing. I was being special or unspecial. I was busy. I had other things to do. This is my part-time hobby. It's not a hobbyist game if you sincerely want to wake up. It's not a hobby. And that'll reveal itself when it reveals itself. It's not forcible. It's good to know about it, so you can have that imprint or idea that may be true for you to explore. Oh, okay, yeah.
I should have worn my hearing aids.
No worries, I will speak up.
Let you know anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, usually I'm mic'd as well, so I can just speak fairly normally. Okay. I'm mic'd in a different way now. It's for recording rather than amplification. You never know. Occasionally I say something interesting, so we try to catch it. Just in case. Interesting to very few people, though. Interestingly. Such is the hypnotism that the human race is engulfed within. You know, just going through the street here earlier, just everyone's in their character, just looking around. No, they just don't sense presence anyway. The most I see generally will be surfers or people that are constantly in, there's consequences. You're not paying attention. You're getting pushed ashore. You're getting pushed into the rocks. There'll be a higher level there, or people that are in dangerous trades and things. But the average person's just sleepwalking. We have to really see this and understand it. If there's no consequence in your life, it's very easy to become very unaware of your environment. And so we have to create those consequences. Like we can, manufacture it, can't we? My tribe, all of my loved ones rely on me being at the deepest consciousness I can be. And if I don't do that, there are consequences. That's an approach. Use the mind against itself. Otherwise we just go, I love the energy, Which is another form of sleeping because it's not yours, it's coming from somewhere else. I had the experience when I was around teachers where I'd go away because of my work commitments for periods of time. And then I'd come back and I'd work really hard, lots of cold showers. I was pouring winter ocean buckets of water on me because I was working on the ocean on boats and just doing everything I could. And I'd come back to the room and thinking, oh, yep, I've done it. I've held, ground consciousness level. And I'd come back and I guess I gave off that air and people would say, hey, you've slipped a lot, right? What do you mean? Like, it was just shocking to me. And that happening a few times, I was like, okay, this is a sneaky thing I'm dealing with here. It's telling me I'm holding depth. It's telling me I'm holding what I left with 3 weeks ago or whatever. And I just wasn't. And then I just stopped trusting my mind altogether around that point. And definitely not enough people do that. You can't trust your mind. It'll tell you whatever it wants you to hear to stop seeking deeper. And if haven't been trained in that, and that hasn't been explained to you properly, and I don't think many teachers are explaining it properly, that's what's going to happen. And again, you're going to find out the hard way at some point. It's just how it is. So my suggestion is don't find out the hard way. Watch others. When I was in a Sangha, I was watching the other students as well. Where are they stuck? Why are they stuck? Is that in me? Oh, these people are just spiritually dancing. They're just here to get stoned and have company. They're not seeking. That's why they're stuck. This person's doing this. Their ego's involved. They have lots of knowledge now, and they can walk circles around everybody in the street, and they're enjoying that. So they're studying knowledge to walk people around in circles. Okay, don't do that. Do I do that? Yes, I do a little bit. Stop doing that. Humble yourself, etc., etc., etc. Instead of just being an observer in the room, of the teacher or the energy, it was like, what else is going on in the room? Where are others making mistakes? Where are they winning? That's what the scout does, right? Because my freedom depended on it, and that's that's my community, you could say, within myself, isn't it? Like, my family, my friends, my own self. I can live as a haunted house, or I can live as a pristine house. Here, a vessel. No, I can have a dirty Wi-Fi signal, or I can have a pristine Wi-Fi signal. Okay, why are people's Wi-Fi signals dirty? Okay, what's that list? Is where do I show up there? I didn't sit around getting stoned. I mean, that would happen, but I kept my faculties to understand what was happening as well. And then you can carry it through the world, because now you're not just a stoner, you're actually embodying it and trying to bring it through the world. That you are, I'm not leaving it. So few are doing that. So if you wake up, what a coincidence, huh? What a coincidence. Maybe it's just the approach. And the intensity, the intent, the will. And so that's up to each being, of course. It's not a problem for me. It's your freedom. I'm good. That's up to you. It's not if you find that a criticism, well, that means maybe there's work to do in certain areas. If you think that makes sense, okay. Well, I would still look to see where there's work to do. I'd be focusing on the 1% and not the 99 where you're right. You focus on the 1% where you might not be functioning correctly, where you might not have it sorted out. You keep your attention on the 1%. It's the same as what athletes do, or business people do, or anyone that wins. They're not focusing on all their wins and how good they feel. They're focusing on what needs to happen for the success. So their business is 99% right. They're looking for where it's wrong. The athlete's looking for where he's weak. The fighter's looking for where he's weak, and he can be taken for a ride. And it's underestimated just how much of a warrior mindset's needed for this by a lot of people, because they're in kumbaya teachings. Jesus, for example, was a warrior. Buddha was a warrior. They were soft and gentle, but they were warriors. You think they could go through the world against all of what they were up against if they weren't warriors, and speak what they were saying in the presence of emperors and, the presence of all the political monstrosities that we keep living through? People think Jesus would, if he was around today, be wearing skinny jeans and pop outfits. No. So I just try and understand that, and it's a surrendered warrior's game. But it takes a warrior to do that against the mainstream, the river of the mainstream of life we're living in, because we're in the world doing this thing. We're not sitting in an ashram up in the mountains somewhere. So it takes an extra set of skill sets and inner resources. And I would suggest even more dedication, not less, which is what most people seem to be doing. But again, everybody at their own pace. My words are my words. Your view of them and your movement through the world is up to you. And I'll just say what I need to say, and they'll sign off on that. Pretty simple. There's no judgment. It's just, there's the mechanics. You are interested in the mechanics of how I see it, or you're not, and that's completely up to the seeker. Until there is no seeker, right? Then you don't want to listen to anything. It's just, I'm good, yeah. But that being said, you don't have to. But I chose to also keep my ears open because I thought, well, what don't I know? Instead of I know. How is this presented in ways that people can hear it that I haven't considered yet? Because you can wake up. Well, you don't wake up. You understand what I'm saying. You find freedom, but it doesn't mean you can share it. There's lots of people that have no idea. They find home, but they can't communicate it. It's extremely hard to communicate it and get people to understand. So a lot of people just, they might just say you're nothing, you're nobody over and over in 1,000 different ways. But others will be dedicated to that task of trying to transfer that information in a way that it's absorbable and you can act upon it. They're just different types. And some just don't teach at all. Have no interest. And so it's going to be different for everybody. That's the other thing. The home looks a little bit different for everybody because it's just coming through a different frame, different reference points, yeah. It's the same background experience, but the personality, the frame it comes through varies. So it's coloured verbally in different ways, and even the way people move, none of that really matters. If you look at Nisargadatta, for example, he would just be ranting and raving and smoking on his beedies and yelling at people and kicking them out of the room. But somebody coming from a Buddhist country would look at that and go, oh, this guy's obviously not home. But it was obviously home. Okay, I think I'm done now. Who's got something? Time for some tea. That's yummy. What is it, do you know? Anyone know? Don't need the name, but what is it? No clue.
It's British.
No clue. Smells lovely.
And I think in that there's still an agreement of separation from the space. And I was just wondering how to dissolve that into being space.
Stay there longer. Or more accurately, stay here longer. It's here, isn't it? And it's there. And so you're having an idea of separation. That's an idea of separation to reside in that space, if that space or a space is found. It's at the doorway. Stay at the doorway. Just stay there and soften. Don't leave. Stay in your heart too at the same time. You can have your attention on your heart as well. Because for me, what's the other option? Don't think about the elephant. Whatever I say, you're going to don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And your mind's engaged now. It's a matter of just resting in that space. Mm.
It could also be like a false idea of safety in that there's two that I hold on to.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very prevalent. Mm. So it's like we've got all these attachments points, like let's say we have to be, like a spider, I guess, we have to be suspended in the middle of the room, and so we have all these attachments points straight out silently, like Spider-Man or something. We're safe because we can pull our web in that way and take off there and here and duck and weave and survive through life. They all get cut. And then you're held by something, but you've got to have the guts to cut the web. It's a warrior's game, because that takes some courage quite often. I mean, we can drop into being and all the rest of it. Like you say, what's holding us just that splinter out is all our attachment points. And they can be very subtle. Hmm? It really is time in the game, time in that space. If you can find it first, you've got to find it. And then it's also got to be authentic, because the mind can fabricate a very close schism thing that's extremely common. First, it has to be authentic. And then secondly, if it's authentic, keep dropping in and resting into there, and stuff will naturally come up. You can surrender it and let go. Yeah, when that space first opens up for me properly, well, the very first time a huge amount of fear came up, and it was gone again, which is common. And in the last process, it had happened earlier in my life, and the same thing had happened. And so, and then at some point it happened, and I just stayed there, and it was, very uncomfortable for a bit. You hear all these romantic stories about it all. Mine was quite violent, as just stuff was leaving so rapidly. It felt like I was dry vomiting, and I had to stay present with that and stay with that. And people were coming up to see if I was okay. No, stay away. Just didn't even say anything. Just kept my head down and let it happen. Ramana talks about it, doesn't he, when he was lying there and everything in his fibre of being, if I remember correctly, he wanted to get up, but he just stayed there and stayed there and stayed there. And you stay there. Most won't, most can't. So that's training. That's what I'm talking about, and that's what we're doing. It was soft romantic stuff, maybe, probably not though. It might be a little bit of a rough ride. So be ready for a rough ride. Prepare yourself. Maybe not. I also have students that are just, and you had to almost tell them there's something else going on now. But they were so close when they came. That it wasn't such a big difference for me. It was a big difference. Yeah. So the unfinished business, Osho used to talk about it too. You do the work before or after. Oh no, one of the things he used to say was, he said that, but he also said, you want to get as much business finished before it happens, because it's going to be very hard to do it later. And there can be a lot of schisms that happen. And elaborating on that, because he did soften things a lot. He really did. He was a storyteller, and gathering a big audience, And what he also meant was that, sort as much out as you can prior, or it's going to be a real rough ride. That was what he was also saying, without saying it. He was approaching this differently. And, there's lots of things, there's lots of hidden gaps, like in sentences from teachers that are well renowned. There's quite a lot of gaps in there that I don't quite say, and you'll work that out when you work it out. But it's, from my perspective, it's better you sort of know about it before it happens, so you know what's happening when it happens. And that's how it was with me with the Toltec teachings. I kind of knew, oh, this is that. Oh, this is that. You wake up and there's going to be a bunch of people close to you that are going to turn on you. Be ready for it. And that started happening. Okay, that's what this is. Good. I'll stay still. It hurts, but I'm staying still. Because I know what this is. You know what I mean? I knew. I knew. I was already told. And I believed it because everything else had been true. So I was okay, well, when I say I believed it, I didn't doubt it too much. So when it happened, I was like, oh, that's this. That's what's happening here. This is just the hidden attacking that you don't see. And it can do it through beings. It's like the Matrix movie, the agent. Like, whoa, this is interesting. That's how it is. Just how it is. What am I going to tell you? Give you some bullshit? I never got bullshitted in the teachings I had, so why should I bullshit you? Because it worked for me. And there was key moments where I could have left, and there was people around me that were having similar experiences that left, and I watched them do it. I was watching them do it, and they were trying to even pull me into it and wanted to talk about it and say how great this is. And no, stop it all. That's somebody talking. Yes, you've got some light there, but it doesn't mean you've held it yet. Shh. Shut up. Yeah. And they're still dancing, so over 10 years ago. 12, 13, 14 years ago. Expensive. Do the work. Do the work.
How to not get stuck in the trap of perfectionism.
Don't get stuck in the trap of perfectionism. Stop it. Well, you've already got awareness on it, so you've already gone through the process. This is happening, I'm getting anger. Okay, this is perfection. Okay, you have awareness of what this is now. So now it's like bringing that closer and closer and closer, the time span it takes you to surrender back to zero. Not avoid, but to be in that situation and the time between you recognizing that and acknowledging it and the present, right? How long, well, you'll recognize in the present, of course, but just using, languaging. And just bringing that time back to as quick as you can. And that's because the slightest movement in your system, there it is, and it goes back. And you just stay there and feel it. And it didn't get a time to come out and play in the world, cause trouble. But you're with it, you stay with that feeling until that feeling dissolves. You welcome it. You do not want it to go hide again. The most important thing is that it stays out. Because you might not ever find it again. That's the way I used to see it. I got something coming up, right. I may never get that circumstance again. I mean, this one you probably would, but some are very rare. You won't even know they're there until they arise. So you definitely don't want to lose them. Like you're saying with the notebook, it was like that. I carried a notebook. I seriously carried a notebook. And if anything happened with my parents or anybody, I would make a note of it. Because they were gold. That's where the treasure is. That's that's the treasure. That's the treasure with the dragon on it. And the dragon just keeps shrinking. And all that's left is the treasure. The dragon deflates. That's what the dragon is. And then you discover it was all a hallucination. But you don't discover that at the start of the work. You discover that in the undoing of that. You don't just have somebody telling you that and that's how it is and I'm just waiting to wake up now. That's the opposite of how to do it. That's how to stay trapped for a very long time. It could be there for weeks or months. Sometimes you can have stuff that's really deep and be there for months. Because it's just so deep. It's just so strong in family lineages and different things. That's just how it is. So if you don't have a surrender to uncomfortableness, well then that remains. And what you call you moving through the world in a certain way, that if you're not aware of all this, you can schism beingness over the top of it, but it's not. You're moving from this. It's just how it is. It took a long time to put our frames together. Eons in our family lineages and what we came in with and what we learned. Just what we learned is a lot. You don't have to get it all, but you need to get a certain amount there has to be a certain amount of space in you for awareness to hold on, like the GPS to lock on. It's like a GPS trying to lock on to the location. And it requires a certain level of stillness so it can lock on, just metaphorically speaking, of course. Right? But if you're full, it hasn't got a target. That doesn't have enough, it can't see you. Yeah, there's too much noise. Untended business to resolve. And being doesn't like sharp edges. It doesn't like jerky reactiveness. It's like a timid cat. It's gone. You don't see it again. It'll be a while before it comes back again. So you have to prepare. It's just my experiences and what I see. It's what I've seen others do wrong. And, as I say, direct experience of going through that process. And also before that all happened, I was reading, there was some teachers out there, I was reading Authentic from Buddhism and systems that actually required a bit of work from the seeker and not just sit in front of the teacher and wait for him to wake you up. There were successful teachers that had woken other students up. They were saying this too, and it was also my experience. But some of the teachings I'd heard and learned from weren't covering any of that at all. So I had to leave them behind because it just wasn't getting covered and it was very important. Critically important, in fact. And that's why I see so many people roaming around lost thinking they're right on the edge of being home. Sorry. And that's not actually what's happening here. Sorry you've been lied to, or the teacher didn't know because they weren't actually where they said they were or think they are. Very common. And they can have a whole group of them that are all at that level, that all think they're home. So it looks like it's very convincing and lots of people around. It doesn't make it any different, it doesn't change that. Just how it is. Well, since when did a crowd make anything authentic? When did that start? We'd all be following the mainstream, wouldn't we? What's on the news tonight? Rah, rah. And the very idea of perfection, and you having that battleship you call perfection to move through the world with, means that God, being, you're giving it less opportunities to get in because you're armoured up in perfection. So it's trying to steer the ship to open it up, but it's piercing through and just carving through the world. And it's trying to, being this wants you home. You want yourself back home. Which is a beautiful thing. But when we lock in on perfection, or our idea of perfection, that's another trap, because now you're reducing the interference ability of the higher. Like an arrow going through life from here to there. Being's trying to stop you. So you can see. There is no there. Which means there is no perfection other than the wholeness itself. And what that arises in, which is part of the wholeness too. It's a luxury to have neuroticism. If you're in some countries in the world, that means you're dead. You have to realise this and don't take that luxury anymore. It's a luxury to not be present. In some places in the world, not an option. Even in Australia, in some areas, in America, in some areas, in England, in some areas, all over the world, it's a luxury. And it means you're probably going to end up in trouble. So there's lots of things in the world that we don't like, but they actually create presence, including suffering, if we can surrender into it. Suffering's a mechanism that wants you to come home because you get tired of suffering, so you want to end suffering. It's very valuable. But most of the world's trying to avoid that and cushion their life and pillow their life, as I was saying before. Very difficult. What have we got up there?
Is it true?
End of Satsang notice, isn't it? Yet again.